Thank you, Varun, for inviting us, and best wishes for this event. Try to make it an annual feature in a very, very sort of interactive manner. Great start for a startup like QueueBuster. Pleasure to be here with you. Varun's mandate was, for me specifically, to talk about food and the industry's nuances, right? So we are not going to talk more about technology, but whatever experience I have tried to concise it into a 30 minutes package. And his second mandate was कि थोड़ा restaurant पे focus ज़्यादा रखना. I guess restaurant industry or the segment is one of his core potential customer segment. So I'll try to maintain that. So before we start, let's look at what is happening around the world today, right? So don't worry, this chart would be made available to you. Subsequent slides are much more simpler. So these are the changes that are impacting us. It is for the first time in the history of mankind that change is practically there in every sphere of life, every sphere of life. So there is artificial intelligence, there is emotional intelligence. So there are counter forces trying to find a balance. So we will see a whiff of that in my presentation. And going by the agenda that QueueBuster floated, I think most of our panel colleagues are going to be talking about it, right? It's very important when we talk about an industry segment to look back in history as to how that industry evolved. Because it will, one, make you humbler. Second, it will give you a very good idea of what lies ahead. So if you look at the food industry in India, we can divide that into 6 broad phases, right? Phase 1 is 60 to 90, where we had clear enough future. So if you look at the chart, it's like singular direction. एक ही focus था, एक ही चीज पे focus करना था. And then we had a range of options, 1991 to 2010. And 2011 is when the true uncertainty started. So we'll be making use of cinema today because cinema often reflects the contextual reality of life. It can take us back into past. It can give us a sense of future, what lies ahead. So I've tried to kind of mix up some of Bollywood and Hollywood in the history of food in India. So pioneer stage. So why it was unidirectional? So we got our independence in 1947, but our forefathers, had this fear in their mind on the back of the famine of Bengal, which happened between 1943 and 46. Close to 3 million people died. So in the independent India, we didn't want to ever get into a situation जिसमें खाने का अभाव रहे, वो मंजूर नहीं था, right? The focus was singular, building food security in India, right? And if you have time, you can always draw a parallel between post-independent India and post-World War II Japan. And if you kind of compare the initiatives taken by our forefathers post-independence and the initiatives taken by Japanese counterparts, I think India was far, far ahead in terms of thinking, in terms of action. Look at the things that happened. Hospitality Management Institutes got founded. Green Revolution. Formation of IFCO, the fertilizer cooperative. Amul, right? So basically focusing on building food security for the future of India. Look at the first generation founders, from Quality to Sarvana Bhavan to Mr. Kamath, Mr. K.C. Das, Mr. Agarwal, right? Look at the movies that were kind of getting released in India at that time. and the rest of the world at that time. So India was Mother India. The third one is not properly visible, but this is a Bengali movie, Ashni Sanket by Satyajit Ray. It was influenced by the famine of Bengal. So, you know, food security again, roti, kapda aur makan, right? It's no longer valid in today's Indian context. We always thought कि रोटी है, कपड़ा है, मकान है, तो मामला ठीक ठाक है, right? Look at what the rest of the world was doing. They were celebrating food. Baker's wife, तो husband wife का झगड़ा हो गया, wife छोड़ के चली गई, सारा गांव जो है वो उस बेकर को मना रहा है कि भाई अपनी पत्नी को वापस लेके आओ ताकि हमें रोज baked bread मिले. So they were celebrating food, right? Unfortunately, we were building security in food. Wonderful phase, 1991 to 2010, expansion, liberalization, call it whatever you want to call. So suddenly we have influx of educated entrepreneurs. So here you will get mixed bag of people from the restaurant industry as well as the packaged food industry. So right from Anjan Chatterjee of mainland China, Mr. Kapoor, A.D. Singh, Sajid Bhai, who's no more, his company is public today, Barbecue Nation, Rajiv Samant, Sula, and Ajay Gupta. So we were very lucky in my previous avatar. We were early investors in Sula Wines when it was all of like 32 CR annualized turnover company, and Capital Foods, Ajay Gupta, was 11 crores in 2006. This was Everstone India's first ever investment in 2006, just 11 crores, but profitable. At 11 crores, he was profitable. Not too much, but he wasn't bleeding cash. जो आजकल चल रहा है कि first you bleed cash, then you build customer से फिर rotation, वो पहले नहीं था, right? So we'll discuss a bit about that also. Look at the vibrancy of Bollywood. It reflects the mood on the, you know, landscape. So look at our movies, Ramji, Chini Kam, right? And some of the Hollywood movies were being screened by our cinemas at that time. And likewise, world was also celebrating food in a very, very different sort of manner, much more vibrant, right? So then comes the maturity and renewal stage, the stage we are in right now, right? So if you look at the core message, it is uncertainty, but uncertainty not in a negative way, right? So you are in a phase where you are no longer presented with 2 or 3 options out of which you can choose one. So there are multiple options. So you have to be smart and capable enough to make the right choices, right? So capability is the core. Humility is even more important because this phase can make you feel कि आप बादशाह हैं, right? So that'll be a very, very wrong step just because you got funded, just because there are a couple of people clapping to every word that you say, doesn't mean कि आप बादशाह हैं. बादशाह काम से बनेंगे, and we'll see that. Okay, so look at new generation companies of India, Zomato, Wow Momo, Rashmi Daga's Fresh Menu. So we are not discussing any relative success or stuff like that. They are all successful in their own ways and are likely to do better in the coming years. So this is not a performance assessment. This is just a kind of session to give you a feel of the India we live in, right? And of course, ice brewed cold coffee by Sleepy Owl family. Look at the movies. Now, India is subject of Hollywood movies, right? So there's Indian cuisine being shown in Hollywood movies as a screen plot, right? So this is the change we have maneuvered from 1947 to 2023. So if you kind of go to now Netflix, or even look at the books that have been published by Indian writers. So back in the day, and I'm talking about time until 2020, most of our books were glossy recipe books. बहुत ज़्यादा gloss होता था, चमकता हुआ, very nice, fancy setting, recipe है, बड़े chiseled out chef की साथ में photo है. Look at the recent books being released. एक तो चेन्नई से release हुई, जो lab by Chris Ashok, who's a journalist, fantastic book. Nick Sharma, The Flavor Equation. So a lot of science is kind of finding convergence with the culinary part, which was often considered as art and craft. So science is seeping in slowly. So when we say science, so technology also kind of piggybacks on that. Right? So what's future of food? इसीलिए आप सारे इकट्ठे हुए हैं आज, हम सब लोग इकट्ठे हुए हैं. So, two-pronged. There is technology, there is this contextual reality that I kind of touched upon a little bit. First, let's look at the health of our industry, right? Casual dining, fast food, cafes are by far in the so-called organized sector. I tend to differ with this definition of organized and unorganized. Yeah, organized sector की definition MNCs ने दी. A large MNC can also be unorganized if they are not conducting the business properly. A single unit restaurant operator could be better organized than best of multinationals. So ये खराब definitions हैं. They are created to create fear. वो चलेगा नहीं अब. Now look at the so-called organized sector. So if you imagine the industry like a dinosaur, और जो उसके दांत और जो हेड वाला पार्ट है हम बोले ये प्रॉफिटेबल पार्ट है because that's working, it has brain in it, right? So then there is torso where a lot of processing is taking place, right? And then there is tail. Tail usually, other than balance in certain living beings, tail usually doesn't have much, जिसको कहते हैं ना, anatomy से देख लें या function ले लें, उसका role नहीं रहता है. तो every business has a tail, every individual has a tail. So our weakness is a tail. राइट और अवॉइडेबल जो वीकनेसेस हैं वो तो बहुत ही ख़राब एक टेल है. अगर मेरी हाइट कम है, 4.5 फीट का हूँ मैं, 5.5 का नहीं हूँ, तो उसमें कुछ नहीं कर सकता मैं, राइट? सो टेल इज़ अ बैड फैक्टर. सो लुक एट द टेल. 39% जो हमारे रेस्टोरेंट्स हैं इस सेगमेंट में सो कॉल्ड दे नेवर मेक मनी. दिस फिगर इज़ रिलेटिवली बेटर देन द प्री कोविड सॉर्ट ऑफ पीरियड. और जो प्रॉफिटेबल हैं वो खाली 24% हैं. एंड वी आर नॉट टॉकिंग अबाउट एस्ट्रोनॉमिकली हाई प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी, जस्ट 10% एट स्टोर लेवल. कि आपने दुकान खोली, दुकान बंद की, 10%. आपने 20 लाख की सेल की तो 2 लाख रुपए आप घर लेके जा रहे हैं. इट्स अ ह्यूज आस्क टुडे इन द इंडस्ट्री अनफॉर्चुनेटली. 80s तक दिस प्रॉफिट यूज्ड टू बी वेरी हाई. देयर वाज आल्सो टैक्स इवेजन बैक इन द डे. सब कुछ कैश में होता था, राइट? तो लोग कहते थे रेस्टोरेंट बिजनेस में कोई फेल नहीं होता क्योंकि देयर वाज अ कैश पार्ट टू इट. शैडो इकोनॉमी थी, हर सेगमेंट में थी, राइट? तो अब वो सब कुछ बंद हो गया है. कंपटीशन इंटेंस हो गया है. देयर न्यू आइडियाज कमिंग. तो राउट टू मार्केट की जो स्पीड है वो बहुत ज़बरदस्त चेंज हुई है. आई नॉट टच द बॉटम पार्ट, we'll cover that in the subsequent slides. So that's the state of the industry. Okay, so now let's draw an analogy कि एक लैपटॉप या कोई भी डेस्कटॉप कंप्यूटर जो है वो कैसे चलता है. 3 चीज़ें. आपका एक इंटेल प्रोसेसर है, देयर इज़ एन ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम एंड देन देयर इज़ एवरीथिंग एल्स. तो अगर आप इन दोनों को अगर इसकी कॉग्स निकालें तो 39% इज़ द इंटेलिजेंस. लुक एट द रेस्टोरेंट इंडस्ट्री, राइट? द फूड पार्ट, राइट, is just 2%. So food part in the restaurant industry is कि hire a neighbor's chef if he is drawing 45,000 rupees, offer 60,000 rupees. Recipes तो मुझे पता है. My mom is a very good cook. वो तो मैं सबको, मेरी दाल मखनी तो मोती महल को भी फेल कर देगी. There is no barrier in the mind, right? And that's the single largest factor that contributes to the failure in this industry, right? Moving on. So look at the amount of money people spend on civil interior and furniture, 60%. Entrepreneurs sometimes uproot the flooring क्योंकि ये वो टेराकोटा कलर नहीं आ रहा जो मेरे दिमाग में है. No one is bothered about the plate on the table that would delight. No one is bothered about the supply chain. And those who do, and we'll talk about them, some of them are luckily here today and they'll narrate their own experiences. तो ये सारा जो system है ये चल रहा है. Now let's compare, right? Health services and a very healthy restaurant with a 15% store level profitability, EBITDA. Professionals get paid 7.5% in the restaurant industry, and doctors 21%. भाई दोनों wellness एक आपको reactive तरीके से आपका ख्याल रखते हैं, एक proactive तरीके से ख्याल रखते हैं. आप बीमार होते हो, आप अस्पताल जाते हो, उसको ज़्यादा पैसे देते हो. शेफ जो है उसको आप तो दोनों, it's like they are taking care of human body, right? So this is the issue in India. In West, it's relatively much better, right? They basic जो उनका retail cost थोड़ा कम है, manpower cost ज़्यादा है. हमारे इंडिया में because of scarcity of good retail space, हमारा retail space काफ़ी ज़्यादा है. तो उस economics को balance करने के लिए we compromised on the food part. Okay. So yeah, there was one lesson out there. It's a penny business. So never ever get into this business. Packaged food or restaurant. अगर आप पैसों का हिसाब नहीं रख सकते, रुपए की आदत है, this business is not for you. This is a penny business. By the time you shut down your outlet, you can devise systems which can tell you what was your food cost for yesterday. Right? So there are people who do it very, very well. Look at Sarvana Bhavan. By the time they shut down the outlet, right, the following morning, they exactly know the liter of raw water used to clean the dishes, because Chennai has water scarcity. Right? And that's where I guess you can do it by two ways. Either have manual checks or you have technology centric solutions. The second is food is a long business. So we saw the dinosaur chart. Dinosaur chart is not applicable to McDonald's. Right? वो tail है ही नहीं है. Right? Why so? Look at the statement from the founder of Ray Kroc. I was an overnight success. All right. But 30 years is a long, long night. Right? तो food is a long business. Food is a penny business. अगर रुपए की आदत है, $1 billion की आदत है, right? So it's not a business for you. In the short run, investors might bless you with the capital, but you will have to use that capital very judiciously. We have two Kabirs today, actually. So one from the middle era and one from the current complexity era. So Kabir in this yellow shirt, Kabir Singh, runs Burger Singh, right, which is an Indian version of burger, right, and through the same retail path. And the founder of Barkos, founded in 1982, right? One company that has seen lots of ups and downs. Recession aaya, chala gaya, right? Bombay attacks, most recently COVID. But these brands held on, right? They never had to sack people. They never had to resort to things which are not right from moral, ethical, or financial sort of perspective. So that's my only point in terms of, क्योंकि ना कुछ चीज़ों में your actions speak louder than your words, right? So you just look around and go to their website. Even Coca-Cola or Pepsi, look at when they were founded. Usually कहा जाता है कि एक business की life cycle जो है वो 93-94 years रहती है. So if you've crossed 100 years, there must be something at play, right? Through generations that have kind of kept the business alive, right? Now look at the McDonald's now. So now they say, because it's changing, and they say we are not a burger company, we are a culture company. The recent statements from They have two marketing chiefs. The duo runs the marketing thing. So I'll throw at you a very startling figure. Pre-COVID, an average restaurant in the US, used to clock 2.1 million US dollars. So if you are an immigrant Indian or a Pakistani franchise partner, you are very, well settled, just running one restaurant, husband-wife team, few people on your team, and you run the restaurant. A very common sort of scenario. Indian and Pakistani and a little bit of Mexicans, they kind of lead these kind of businesses in the US. Gujarati community is more into motels and convenience stores. Punjabis and people from UP, etc., they excel in these kind of businesses. So from 2.1 million pre-COVID, today an average restaurant for McDonald's in the US is clocking 3.4 million US dollars. Right? Imagine a 10% after paying off royalties, etc. Imagine a 10% take-home profit, 340,000 US dollars for a husband and wife team. I don't think such kind of businesses were ever created in the recent human history. But the root is not magic. Root is seeded in their systems, processes, right? A belief that we have to get better, whether it's food, technology, systems, processes, manpower, etc., etc. So slowly we are moving towards agenda that Varun had defined for us. Lesson number 3, food business and to an extent fashion business also calls for a lot of knowledge and passion. वो knowledge जो है हो सकता है आपने कोई डिग्री ली है IHM से या निफ्टम से या किसी फूड टेक्नोलॉजी कॉलेज से, तो जरूरी नहीं है कि डिग्री से ही नॉलेज आ सकती है, एक्सपीरियंस से भी आ सकती है. But look at the scenario of the Indian industry today. There are only 18% CEOs, packaged food and restaurant industry combined, जिनका food background है. And I'm not saying degree, right? या 10 साल का भाई CEO अगर 200-300 करोड़ की कंपनी चलाते हो तो 10 साल तो वाजिब एक है ना कि सीख सकते हो. बट 10 साल एक आई थिंक इज़ अ वेरी फेयर एक्सपेक्टेशन. डिग्री नहीं है तो 10 साल का एक्सपीरियंस है, राइट? चलो कोई बात नहीं है, आपका doesn't need to be a food professional to be running the food business. But do you offer seat at the table to the people who understand food? Your R&D head, your chefs, right? They are there to perform the support function, but they have zero say in leadership decisions. 80% such companies, right? Look at any industry vertical, technology, automotive, space, you will not find such a gap. So food industry, unfortunately, in India is run by CMOs and CFOs. I have nothing against them. It's absolutely fine for a person who has a marketing background to be running the company, but it is definitely not okay to not provide seat at the table to people, to your colleagues who understand food, right? Moving on. Hi-fi to lo-fi. So this is the biggest trend that is kind of building up in the world. So we are just coming out of that Facebook era and moving into so-called meta. But if I look at it from more humanistic angle, तो जो hi-fi जो चीज़ थी वो ख़त्म हो चुकी है फूड में. जो Instagram पिक्चर्स आती थी, रेस्टोरेंट के ऊपर एक बल्ब लगता था कि फूड पे फोकस करेगा, बड़ा किया लोगों ने, बड़े उनको अंगूठे मिले, 30,000 likes, 35,000 likes, but they couldn't take it to bank. So if you could take it to bank, do it. It's working, right? But if you are not able to monetize and your entire strategy is based on, you got to think. So this is changing, and this is not me saying it. This is coming from even large social media giants, right? This is coming from social anthropologists. This change is in the air, right? Demography is like an assembly line. So this is, again, first time in the history of the world when you are catering to not 4, but 5 generations. Earlier, you only had 2 generations to cater to. The other 2 used to adjust. जो सबसे छोटे थे और सबसे बड़े थे, खासकर फूड में, the middle-aged people used to order for their parents कि ये आपके लिए ठीक है, ये soup है, ये आपके लिए ठीक रहेगा. Today, you can't order for your parents or grandparents. So you are catering to 5 different generations. So if you look at Subway's business or Haldiram's business, they just get 9% of their business from zillennials. So what does that mean? So when these zillennials, over time, because age is not a static thing, so we are aging every second. So what happens is that 5 years down the line, if your feed is low on the left-hand side of your assembly line, you won't have stable consumer cohort. So listen to the youngest generation. They are the game changers. And from experiences, we are moving to sensations, emotions, and thoughts. So don't fool yourself that technology is going to be the only savior. There is going to be a convergence between technology and humanity. So coming to technology. So area of focus in restaurants has largely been on delivery, and if you look at outside of India focus, drive-through is a big business, as we all know, for all fast food companies in the US. So massive innovation there, massive. AI, Internet of Things, a lot of stuff is in the pipeline, and I personally encourage all the people who are already running a startup or are desirous of running a startup or wish to cater to the food industry, study McDonald's in the US. You will get a lot of ideas, right? So if you look at McDonald's, they have not only bought very stable tech companies, they've also created a company and sold it to IBM. Did you know that? They sold one company to IBM, which basically specializes in voice recognition system. So McDonald's is a long company, as I mentioned. They're very low profile. Their actions usually speak louder than their. I sit on the board of Burger King and Subway because of my association with Everstone, but there are lots of goods and differentiating points with Burger King and Subway, but McDonald's, because of its vintage, because of its focus, it's a class apart. I'm their competitor in India, right? But it's something that you can't ignore. We should learn and try to do better. Last slide. So a lot of you are some stage of like your panel discussions and interactions going to talk about AI. So in simplistic terms, so what is AI? You need vast quantities of data. You need algorithms to make sense out of those data, whether those are texts or some really meaningful insights, and the computational power. So now data is where world is trying to counter by way of mining more data, creating more data, but we are reaching an endpoint. But food is little different. Food, what happens is there is a social and emotional context, right? It's not a linear thing, right? Our cravings, occasions, human anatomy, biology, right, creates different kind of variables in the data set, right? So it's not going to be easy for people to mine food data. So there is an opportunity for people to build primary data, which eventually converges with various, your long language models and your tokens, etc., wherein it starts to make some sense. So I think this slide I'll skip because I happen to sit on a panel after this presentation along with my senior colleagues from the industry. We can cover that. Sorry I short my time by 5-7 minutes, but the idea was to give you a context that technology is very important, but food business has certain nuances. The idea is to find the right balance between those societal, humanistic, emotive nuances and technology, right? And we have live case studies. This is not like a hypothetical case. McDonald's is doing it beautifully well. There are companies like Starbucks doing exceedingly well in certain segments, but not across. Then there are companies like Sweet Green, Kawa. They love to call themselves technology companies, but they are using technology very, very effectively. They are, technically speaking, casual dining companies. Sweet Green is a public company. Slew of data is available on public platforms. Kawa CAVA is their competitor, which is likely to go public in the next month or so. So you will learn a lot. So if you want to run a restaurant, factor all these things. If you want to be a service provider to these restaurants, understand this beast. 2 points before I say bye to you. Penny business, right, and long. So if you are in it for 2 years, 3 years, so I was joking with Arun yesterday, my partner in TagTaste, कि बिलियन सेकंड कितने साल में होते हैं, तो बिकॉज बिलियन डेफिनेशन इतनी वाला पिट चुकी है तो बहुत अचीवेबल लगता है नंबर. तो इफ़ यू जस्ट कैलकुलेट, मूव योर फिंगर्स, 31 साल बिलियन सेकंड. So that's the power of billion. Respect those 9 zeros, right? And in a country like India, even if you create rupee billionaires, what's the harm? 100 crore रुपया कोई कम होता है? पहले बिजनेस तो बिल्ड करो ना, बाकी तो आउटपुट है, right? So this obsession, 20 million, 30 million, 100 million, 100 billion is wrong. Build these businesses, value comes with that. So that's how I would end my session. Hope it meant something for all of you. Thank you very much.